Hey, how's it going? I just got a question on one of my videos to talk about my experience working at Epic Games. I worked at Epic as an intern. I think it was in the summer of, oh, darn. I'm not sure. Maybe it was 2020? It was like a year, it was like 2 years ago, maybe. And it was originally going to be the summer, actually, but then Corona happened and things got pushed back as everybody was kind of adjusting to work from home. And then I think I actually did the internship in the fall. So that's ultimately what happened. Um, I have to say it was a really well done internship experience, given that they were trying to adjust for like a remote situation. There was a lot of programming. Like you could really tell that the people who managed the internship experience, the recruiters or university, representatives, they did an amazing job of programming, creating like fun, games for us to play together, and like maybe a weekly Zoom with all the interns, or doing something like we'd get together, we'd do games, like we'd do like little trivia games. We'd do stuff where, somebody's got the spotlight and you have to guess their favorite food or something. Just fun little like icebreaker activities for you to get to know the other people in your internship cohort. And I really appreciated that because I think the internship experience it's a great way for you to get better at your job, right? To practice programming or art or whatever it is that you do. But it's also a great way for you to expand your network and to make new friends in the industry. And one of the best ways to do that, right, is to meet some of the other interns who are going to go on to become your coworkers in the industry, or maybe future business leaders, stuff like that, right? So I really appreciated that, and I got to create a lot of great relationships and make new friends. When I think about it, actually, when I worked for Zynga in my first year of college, that group, I still have some friends from that original intern cohort, so many years ago, maybe over half a decade now. They were just hitting up the group chat because Zynga just got bought by Take-Two. So like, oh, I should have sold my shares or something like that. So you can really build some lasting relationships, and I highly recommend you focus on that. If you do an internship, try to meet people, try to make friends, and learn as much as you can. Really, be a sponge, soak up all the information, and make friends along the way. So overall, it was a really great internship experience from the programming side of things. I mean, like the events and stuff like that. Um, what else? What else should I say? And it was totally remote, so they sent me. Oh, they bought me a computer, so I still have that computer today. Isn't that cool? So basically, they gave you a budget. I don't recall what it was. It might have been. It was several $1,000s. So maybe I have no idea what it was. Okay, it might have been 1K. But I'm gonna guess it was maybe 5K. And so for $5,000, you could buy the best computer that you need, buy any monitors you need, a desk, whatever. And for that $5,000, set yourself up at home, and then we don't need to do anything beyond that, right? Which was that was different, right? Because at my current job, they just sent me a PC, and I guess for the interns, they just figured it'd be too much of a mess to get it back after the internship or something like that. I'm not sure, but basically they just paid for me to buy my own PC, which was really cool. And I would say Epic in general. Let me lower this a little bit. Sorry, I noticed my audio's a little bit too loud. Let me tone that down just a bit. The other thing that I noticed was, yeah. So Epic like paid for it, and that's sort of like a consistent theme. Like I remember I was getting a presentation from this guy, and he said, "By the way, at Epic, don't tell anybody I told you this, but there is no budget." And by that, he's saying like Epic has a lot of money, so they can spend as much as they want on whatever they want. Kind of like Apple or Google or something like that, right? Not obviously that much, but similar kind of situation where if you need to buy some shit, they'll buy it for you. So I think that's certainly a factor. Like when you're working there, like you feel like you've got the company behind you. It doesn't feel like a pain in the ass to like get resources and stuff, at least in my experience. Well, so that's one side of the coin, but the other side of the coin is like, the company has a velocity, right? It's going in a direction, and I think it's like it's a it's a company where things actually move pretty fast. And so you're either on the train or you miss the train. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to be political with how I say this, but basically, like, I was on a team where, so I worked on Fortnite Creative, which is sort of like, so in Fortnite, you may be familiar with the Battle Royale game where you can go and fight people in a circle as it collapses, and then there's one guy left and he wins the game. Now, there was also a single player game called Fortnite Save the World where you have to build a base and fight zombies. And then there's also Fortnite Creative, where you can create your own maps, and then people will play your maps, and it's sort of like a Minecraft custom world, or Roblox is probably the best analogy. And then now, I work for Manticore. If you're familiar with Core Games, that's a similar thing where you build your own world and you come and you play other games that people made. So that's kind of like Fortnite Creative. That's what I worked on. And that was really rewarding, but I would say it wasn't like the focus of the business unit. And so um, we were kind of like I was kind of like in maintenance mode. I was kind of like working on something that maybe the company it wasn't like their top priority. So it kind of felt like at sometimes like I was kind of like the second child. Like this is like a, obviously to be a second child doesn't mean you're not loved and stuff, right? But like the stereotype is that the parents love the first kid more. So it kind of felt like that a little bit. Like I wasn't loved as much as other people. Um, but that was just my experience, right? And that was the team that I was on. So other teams are going to be way different, right? A lot of the culture that I experienced may have been local to just my pod, right? That doesn't mean it's true for the whole industry, or for the whole company for that matter. So another example was, the other engineers I work with were, um, they were very much of the belief that they did not have a responsibility, or should not, test their own work. So it was, so, and that's something I don't agree with. Because, in my current company, a Call of Duty Warzone, it's very important for you to play the game, especially as a gameplay engineer, where that's like, you can't get closer to it. Maybe a game designer, but it's like it doesn't get much closer to it than a gameplay engineer. You really got to know the repercussions of the actions that you're doing, know what the users are experiencing, experience those pain points for yourself to gain empathy as a designer and as an engineer. So I think it's really important to test your own games and to play your own games. And one of the engineers, he said to me, "Oh, we don't play our games. That's QA's job. Let them do that." And it just was a little bit dismissive. But and that's the culture, right? So you try and respect the culture and play by the rules. But that's something that I tucked away in my memory, and I was like, okay, that's an interesting sentiment. It's not something I agree with, but it's an important thing to understand, right? And obviously, when you come into a situation, you're working at a job, maybe you have somebody who's more senior than you, and you got to do what they want you to do, right? If they want you to focus on your feature, playtesting takes a lot of time, right? So that's something to consider. It might take maybe an hour every day. That's a serious commitment. If there's times where they want you to focus on your feature, right? Even in my current job, where playtesting is a priority for my team, sometimes you can't playtest every day because you're in the middle of something. You're debugging. You're 5 stacks deep in some crazy, debug, breakpoint logic. You can't just jump out of that real quick, right? So that's a factor certainly, but it's just something. It was part of their philosophy, at least in the team I was in, and so that's something that I wanted to communicate. I wanted to also say that Fortnite had the best third-party tooling I've ever seen. Now, that should come as no surprise, because they built the freaking Unreal Engine, which is like, I mean, other than Unity, the de facto game engine. Certainly more so than Unity when it comes to like these AAA games. And there's definitely some elitism, by the way. Like, oh, you do Unity? Well, that's not real. That's not really what it's about, right? It's really Unreal. You want to really make games, you got to use Unreal, right? Come on, Unity's for noobs, right? There was definitely a little bit of that elitism, right? And I still use Unity for my side projects. We could talk about the Unreal Engine for a long time, because I've used both, and obviously I worked at Epic, so I know a lot about the Unreal Engine. We'll get into that in a moment. Oh, shoot, I lost my train of thought. So I was talking about the Unreal Engine and, the tooling. So the tooling was amazing. right? So it's very common for a company to have like a third-party tool to manage their CI, which stands for continuous integration. The way that that works is like, how do I explain this? Basically, version control is an important part of any big software project, but with video games, the new builds are coming in so fast, the new changes are coming in so fast that you don't have enough time to test every change. Okay, so let's say it like this. Let's say it takes 10 minutes to test a change, and there's a new change coming in every minute. Well, you're gonna run out of time, right? Because you do one change, and then while you're still in the middle of that test, the other 9 changes come, and then you finished it, but you've only finished a test for the first change. So what are you gonna do now? Because if you test the second change, well, now it's gonna be another 10 minutes. It's gonna be 20 minutes until you test just the third change in the row, right? So that's the issue of game development, because it takes so long to do the builds and the tests. So they have this process called continuous integration, where what you do is you run tests locally and you say, okay, I don't think this is going to break the build. And then you push the commit. And then since it takes 10 minutes to test the change, maybe they only test every 20 changes. So a change goes in, they test it, and then 20 changes later, they test it. And then they say, okay, the build is broken. So I know it worked 20 changes ago. I know it doesn't work now. So the issue was somewhere in between these two changes, right? Sort of like a binary search, right? We know when it worked, we know when it didn't work. So the issue is somewhere in between these changes. So that's the premise of continuous integration, and there's tools to do that process for you. And I've seen a lot of third-party tools that do that, but Epic's was, whoo, amazing. I think Call of Duty has one called, there's a great GDC talk on it. This is public information. It's called, what the heck is the name of that thing? I can't remember right now. I use it every day. But what is it called? I don't know what the continuous integration system is for Call of Duty. I forgot. But if you want to check it out, there's a great GDC talk on it. But Epic's was really, really good. So I love their tooling. I felt like their tools team was really competent. And I have to say, I've never worked with a more competent engineering team. Never in my life. Everyone there was really fucking good. Even more so than when I worked at Facebook. I felt like the people here were just 100% on the ball. Extremely strong team. You know, there's other places I've worked at, and I've been like, you know, I've heard people, they say like, oh wow, this is like the best engineering team I've worked with, or like this is the strongest team. I've never been able to say that, you know, cause like it's never even come close. The engineering, you know, capabilities of the Epic Games team is very strong, for sure. So what else is that? So, and they really do put a focus on the C++ stuff. So I talked a little bit about elitism versus like Unity versus Unreal. So I had done a lot of tutorials in Unreal to try and prepare myself for this job. And I did I found somebody on Reddit. And so we worked together to build a little game. He said he was like a level designer, you know, aspiring level designer. So I worked with him a little bit, and I worked on the game also as the engineer. And, you know, I work with their tools a little bit, but I have to say I never hit my stride. And even working in the Unreal Engine for the 3 months that I was at Epic, I still never hit my stride. I just feel so limited. I just feel so, I don't know how to describe it, but I just feel like there's certain tools where you got to know a lot of stuff in order to be effective. And there's other tools where if somebody just explains a little section, you could get going, right? Like, for example, if I were to bring up the program Paint, Microsoft Paint, like I can get a little brush and I could start drawing stuff, right? Whereas with some other painting programs, like with, well, I don't know, Photoshop's pretty good, but I feel like with other programs, like you might need to know the right menu and the right thing to click, and it's like kind of onerous to just get like a simple thing down. And that's how it felt in the Unreal Engine, and that's still how it feels for me today. I feel like I I may work in the Unreal Engine in the future because there's a lot of game companies that use it. But I just feel like I feel very much more at home in Unity. I feel much more comfortable there. And of course, I've been working in Unity for over a decade now, or maybe about almost a decade. I think I've been working there for maybe 7 or 8 years in Unity. So it's been quite a lot of time to build up, my muscles there. But I feel like it's just way easier to approach. And you know what? That's actually something unique though about the Unreal Engine, because it's a public engine, right? So a lot of people have used it and made tutorials, and that's a really great boon. It's a benefit of working on that system, because if I get stuck and I don't understand something, I could just go to the internet and look it up. And I did that on my job, and that was a very unique experience because I'd never been able to do that before, because all the tool sets that I work on are completely local to that team. So that's kind of a unique aspect. I will say though that the Unreal Engine, if I would just touch upon it for a little bit, I found constantly that I would be fixing bugs where the issue, like they'll give me a bug and they'll be like, okay, this is not working, figure out why. And the issue would be that in this menu, like you go into this menu, then you go into this menu, and you go into this menu, and here's a checkbox, and you needed to have checked that box. And I hated those bugs. It was not fun to work on them at all, because you just needed to know the UI systems very well, and you needed to look for like whether the box was checked. And of course, all the checkboxes have labels, but they're never descriptive enough to really explain the context. And it was always hard to look up a tutorial to figure out exactly what this thing did. It was very frustrating. I found that there was a ton of, I call them like checkbox bugs. On my current job, we have this tool that is infamous for having a lot of bugs where it's just one checkbox is not checked, right? Or you need to turn this slider to that knob, right? And those little fiddly things are always just so frustrating to work with, especially as an engineer, where I think if you're an engineer as well, you're probably feeling more comfortable about just just like a text file or a program that you can control find and stuff like that. But you can't control find with text boxes and check boxes. So that's the issue, right? It's a little bit hard to navigate all those different panels, and I found that was frustrating at times, certainly. The other thing is so I was talking about they really focus on the engineering acumen. So I did some training, right? I did preparation for the internship where I worked on some games, and I did some blueprinting at C++, and they said pretty much, oh, you're not going to do any blueprinting, right? Again, I think I had some people on my team who were maybe a little dismissive, but they were like, oh, blueprinting is kind of beneath us. You really got to focus on the C++. And I could understand the performance concerns there. But of course, with any game that you make in the Unreal Engine, there's a balance between blueprinting and C++. Obviously, the level blueprints, if you're familiar with that paradigm, the level blueprints are very important for the design of the different levels and stuff. So if you think that if you're going to work as a gameplay engineer at Fortnite or whatever, you're going to be doing blueprinting, then you're wrong, because the designers are the ones who do the blueprinting. The engineers pretty much solely work in C++. Now, since I was on sort of life support for a long-term project, I was not doing new feature work. I was doing bug fixes and support for work that had already been completed. And a lot of those bugs came from the blueprints that designers had created. So I actually did wind up doing the majority of my work in blueprints, but only because there was already infrastructure set up in blueprints. So I was going into blueprints and figuring out, okay, what was the bug here, and then solving it. And I have to say, the blueprint system is beautiful. I love the blueprint system. It's a visual, it's just your generic visual node editor, control flow kind of visual programming system, but it was an absolute pleasure to work with. I love that aspect of Unreal Engine, and I think it's no surprise that that's one of the biggest reasons people love Unreal. It has a really robust blueprinting system that can give your designers massive muscles. If they don't know how to code, they can still get a ton of shit done through the blueprint system. So that's a great boon of the system for sure. This is just a silly note, but I had told my younger brothers, who are huge fans of Fortnite, that I was going to be working at Fortnite. They were super excited about it, and I told them I was going to get some Robux, which are the digital currency that you use. Oh, fuck. It's not called Robux. That's Roblox. I don't know what it's called for Fortnite. I keep forgetting it. Let me look this up because I've made this mistake twice in the videos. What do you call like the currency in Fortnite? V bucks. Okay, I wonder why is it V? What does V stand for? I'm not sure about that. So that's why I can't remember. Maybe if they were, well, you can't call them F bucks, right? That's a little controversial because that's a little spicy. So you can't call them F bucks, I guess. So you call them V bucks. Yeah, I never. Oh, virtual bucks, maybe virtual dollar. I'm not really sure what the naming scheme is there. But anyways, they said in the job description, like, oh, like if you're an employee at Epic, you're gonna get some V bucks, and I was like, oh, okay. I told my younger brothers, I'm like, I'm gonna get you the V bucks, and then I did the job, and they said, no, actually, we don't do that anymore. We don't give you any V bucks. You got to buy them on your own. So I thought that was kind of funny. It reminded me of when I was at Facebook, and there was a embarrassing moment where they had just so at Facebook they have a town hall where I don't know, every week, yeah, every single week on Fridays they do a TGIF. They give you some alcohol, which is like, spicy. They give you some alcohol, and you get in this big auditorium, and then the actual CEO of the company, Mark Zuckerberg, comes up to the front stage and he talks about the company, what the status is, and where you're going. Right? That's amazing, by the way. There's very few companies I found that are that transparent, and that are I mean, man, that guy, that was a really amazing aspect of that company. Epic has a similar thing where they have, I think it's every month, they have a town hall, and the CEO gets on the horn and he talks about the company and the direction he wants to take. That's awesome. I wish my CEO did that because he doesn't make an appearance at our meetings. So I think that's amazing, and I really respected that. By the way, side note, I have never been more honored to work for a CEO than Tim Sweeney. Honestly, we talk about drinking the Kool-Aid at some of these corporate companies, right? Like, Facebook had some serious Kool-Aid, where you were bought, but you either bought in or you didn't, right? Not to say it was a Jonestown situation, but it's like, you're really like with it or you're not. And I think Epic had a similar kind of vibe where it was just like there was a lot of emotion behind like the work that was going on. And I think I was really invested personally. I really believed in the mission of Epic. I think they had done amazing strides to democratize the industry. In case you're not familiar with it, like they built the engine, and then they were kind of the first people to do cross-platform, and obviously the metaverse work that they're doing now, and the battle against Apple, which is huge, right? Because I have my history with Apple and lots of issues there. So I really respected my CEO Sweeney, and it was an honor to work for him. So that was a side note. But we were talking about the robot. Oh, yeah, sorry. So I was telling you the funny Facebook story. So anyways, we're in this town hall, and Mark Zuckerberg gets up, and he's like, this is the new Oculus system. You're going to be able to walk around with it. You don't need to be tethered, right? It's called the Oculus Quest, I think. And it had just been announced at that time, and, it was top secret at the moment, right? But then it was announced, and we were the first people to hear about it. And somebody stands up in the audience because in the past when they had created the first Oculus, they gave employees the Oculus who were working at Facebook, or at least Oculus at the time. And so this employee from Facebook stands up and he's like, hey, will we be receiving the Oculus for free because we work here? The Oculus Quest, right? This new product. And Zuckerberg was like, well, I think I pay you enough, which I thought was such a silly thing for him to say, right? So he's saying, no, basically, you make enough money to buy it on your own, okay? Yeah, lazy bum, right? That's kind of what he was saying. And, people kind of laughed at the guy, and it was like an embarrassing moment, but kind of funny. But also I empathize with him. It's like, come on, man, give us some of those cool gadgets that you're making, right? So it was kind of a silly moment, right? So that's kind of how it felt with the V-Bucks. They were like, you want to buy V-Bucks? Then buy V-Bucks. Don't we pay you enough? So I kind of felt that way. So just a silly thing, right? But obviously I don't care. So I think that was all good. What else do I want to talk about? So I talked about the check boxes, how they would fail somewhat. This is another engineering just a little side note here. But all the time in the Unreal Engine, something would fail and it wouldn't tell you. There were so many silent failures in that code base that it made me very angry and very sad. So the way that would work is it's something like, like, how do I describe it? Like, let's say that there is a function called log in. So it's to log the player in. and then that function is getting called, but the guy's not logging in, and there's no error being reported. So you go into the method and you're like, what's happening here? And it says, if connected to internet, log in. And there's no else statement. So if you're not logged in, it doesn't do anything. It just completely fails out, but silently. I hated that. I hated that so much because, and they have to be really ambidextrous, right? This engine, because you don't know what context someone's going to be using it. There's a lot of different games that are being made with the Unreal Engine. So that's one of the downsides. It's like, as part of being a platform, it's so generic that a lot of times you have to handle edge cases that for your situation should certainly be failures, but in other situations actually are valid usage of the API and of the engine. So that was a difficult thing to address, because there was a lot of cases where it would crash or otherwise fail, and it wouldn't tell you why, because maybe someone's making a game where they want it to silently fail in that case. So I wish it was sort of like an opt-out system or something like that, or if they had some sort of debugging in all those if statements and you could kind of opt in or out. But a lot of them didn't have that support. Okay. I have to say, it was a very laid-back work environment, relatively flat. You could tell that everybody there was highly skilled, and they really respected you if you were on the team. They believed in you, and it was not very political of a working environment, right? I've worked in some teams where it's very political, and this team, not at all. It was very engineering-led, so, you know, I've heard it described like different studios have different, you know, politics, right? There's always the debate of like, the engineer wants to make it go fast, and the artist wants to add more detail, but maybe that'll cause performance issues, right? And the designer wants you to be able to do 100 different things to give the player as much agency as possible, right? Like, you always have that trifecta. And then production wants you to ship the shit yesterday, so they need you to reduce the scope and get the project done, right? So there's always this, you know, confluence of different teams vying for what they want politically when it comes to a game. And there's usually a team that has more power at different studios, right? So, for example, studio like God of War, very focused on the creative direction, right? And you could just look at their history, right? In the middle of God of War, right? Balrog takes the lead, and boom, the engineering director drops, and half the engineering team drop because they were not being heard. Maybe, let's say there was a war there, and they lost, right? So they weren't feeling it. So that whole half their engineering team, right, defected from that studio. Then I think they also lost a creative director in the process too, because this guy was not on board with the design vision. So that's a studio where the design creative direction vision, you know, it's my way or the highway situation, right? I think at Epic, and certainly at Facebook, are you kidding me? Very focused on the engineering. So that's sort of, you know, where the focus is, right? So that's something for you to consider, right? When you go into a studio, is your like political party, what's their relative weight in the decision-making process? You know, it's not something you would think about if you're maybe the first time you're entering the industry, but after you've worked at a number of different studios, you sort of see how politics unwrap and like how decisions get made. Yeah, that could be a big factor in your decision-making, because to be in a party that does not have political control is a loss of agency, right? It's a loss of decision-making power. So that's something for you to consider. And at Epic, it's certainly engineering-led. You know, the CEO is obviously got a lot of engineering experience. He's a John Carmack kind of guy. So that's just something for you to consider. What else? Wow, what an incredibly rewarding place to work when it came to the player experiences. I love working on live service games. They're one of my favorite kind of games to work on because you can get immediate feedback. You could put out a feature and the community can engage with that feature maybe within just a few weeks or something like that, right? Versus the cadence of like a Christmas release where you might work on a feature, but the game doesn't ship until 2 or 3 years from now. So it could be some time before you get feedback on that from a true player, not just a playtester. So I really appreciated engaging with the community, watching a ton of YouTube videos of people who are Fortnite creators and using the tools that I was working on. That filled my heart with so much joy. As you know, the reason why I'm in this industry versus any other kind of software engineering is because I love video games and I love interactive experiences and creative interactive storytelling. That stuff makes my heart sing, and it inspired me to no end to see people using the tools to create interactive experiences. I teamed up with my little brothers, and we went on together because they had played the game as well, and we played some of the maps together. We made some maps using the player-facing map design tools that I had created. It was a real rewarding experience. I love that. It was so awesome. And of course, there's a lot of renown to the Fortnite project. This is a well-known video game in today's space. I think my younger brother had a Fortnite birthday party, right? That's pretty crazy, right? So it's certainly popular within the zeitgeist of the young people today right now. So that's always cool, right? Because if I could choose to work on a video game that no one has heard of versus a video game that is very popular, all other things being equal, I would of course choose to work on one that has greater visibility because I can see more people playing the cool stuff that I made. So that was really rewarding. I want to do a shout out to the production team at Epic. It was really, really strong. I had a great producer in particular who worked with me. She would schedule meetings directly with me, her, and my boss, and we would work through the Jira tickets, making those assignments and really understanding what the team needed from me and where I needed to focus my efforts. I really appreciated the production philosophy at that company. It was very strong. I have had few producers that strong in my career, and I have to tell you, when you have a producer that's okay, you feel like your time is being managed. You feel like there's a schedule, and they are doing their best to keep you on track and help you stick to the schedule. But when you have a producer that is great or amazing, you feel like, my gosh, it's an amazing experience. The only way I can describe it is sort of like in a video game where you might be a damage dealer, right? Your job is to fight the enemies. You might have somebody else on your team who's a magician who can give you buffs, right? They can increase your attack damage. They can increase your defense skill. That's what it feels like to have a great producer on your team. A constant buff from somebody else who is constantly getting obstacles out of your way. Just there to support you as a +1 whenever you need to make a decision or whenever you need support on the game and your development process. I have to say, the producer I had on this project was one of those producers. Really great. Really, really great. I have to say, like that's a consistent theme throughout this whole video, so it maybe is like old news at this point, but the talent at Epic it was unrivaled to what I had experienced. Just across the board. Really fucking smart, competent, compassionate people. Yeah. And that's it. I think that's, yeah, and that's where I'm going to end. It's a great company. Epic Games is a great company. Obviously, there's a lot of different teams. There's a lot of different projects. So what I said is not reflective of the experience, right? It was just my experience. That's just one data point. I highly recommend, if you're considering interning for Epic yourself, or maybe even working there full time, that you go on LinkedIn, reach out to other people who are working there, ask about some of your concerns, and ask what's the best part of working there, what's the worst part of working there, and get some more data points so that you can make the most informed decision for your career. Good luck if you are applying. I certainly hope you get past the interview and stuff like that, and wherever your journey may take you. If you'd like more videos like this, hit subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button. Thanks.